Welcome back. We have been taking a look at what's making headlines on the dailies this morning. We're just about to get a look at the top stories that have been making headlines for the better part of the week. Remember, our phone lines will be open for this beat, and you can call in and take part in this conversation. But before we get there, remember, in studio with me, Bob Okode, who is an independent candidate for the Butula constituency parliamentary seat. We also have High Court Advocate Ndegwa Njiru and Lee Mushiri, who is also running independently for the Roysambu parliamentary seat. Gentlemen, let's finish up with our conversation before we went on break. And Ndegwa, we're speaking about the issue of accountability in the UNGA debate. Correct. And the interview that the Deputy President had, seemingly avoiding the real issue.
You know, the whole aspect of accountability does not just rest with UNGA. The government is accountable to its citizens. In all aspects, whatever it does, it is presumed that that government is doing for the benefit of its citizenry. Because the government is formed to serve the people. Mm-hmm. And that is why in return, we pay taxes to government to that the government can then run.
Right.
So when it comes to a time when the people cannot be able to know why and how the ship was able to sail from Mexico within 2 days or 3 days, mm-hmm. and docks at the port of Mombasa, and when the persons charged with the responsibility are put to task to explain, and they say that we are trivializing that matter, it then means that the person who is then charged with that responsibility is not respecting the power of the people.
Right.
Remember, the Constitution has said under Article 1, and I'm imploring upon everybody to read this Constitution, it says that power belongs to the people, mm-hmm. and it shall be exercised in accordance to the provisions of the Constitution. So when exercising this power, the people exercising it must then know that one of the aspects of exercising this power is transparency and accountability. Mm-hmm. So the question here is, and I agree with what Lee is saying, that the whole aspect of maize shortage was calculated. I hear now that the subsidy that was given amounts to about 6 billion.
Right.
They need to tell us how did we arrive at that 6 billion? Where did we get this money for subsidy from? Did we get it from our consolidated funds? Did we have a budget for it? Those are the questions we need to know. Mm-hmm. And the question is, the government also needs to come out clear and tell us what is a Kenyan policy on food security. Remember, and we shall keep on reminding the president and his deputy, that in Kasarani, they gave a vow that never again shall Kenyans go hungry. And they must be able to live up to their words. And they must be able to live up to and own what they tell the Kenyans, mm-hmm. unless they want Kenyans not to trust them.
Right.
They told us that they are going to do a 1 million acreage of maize plantation in mm-hmm. Galana Kulalu.
We've seen that in the Galana Kulalu project.
I have severally seen the Minister for Irrigation, Honorable C.S. Wamalwa, saying and giving an account of how far they have gone with Galana Kulalu. Mm-hmm. But the question is, Galana Kulalu is there, we're investing in it, but we are hungry. And so my parting shot on this topic is, let us become so sensational about the question of food. Mm-hmm. Let the question of food become so sensational even in the way we are going to vote, in terms of sensitizing people to become conscious of the government they are putting into place. Mm-hmm. And this should not stop here. Remember, Kenyans died for about 3 months with the question of the clog and the deadlock between government and the doctors.
Right.
All those are the issues that must be packaged in these campaigns. Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. So let's move away from that issue and focus on some politics that took place for the better part of this week. And this is a city race in Nairobi. And we've had Mike Mbuvi Sonko unveil his running mate, Polycarp Igathe. And Ndegwa, you had quite a lot of thoughts about his choice of running mate. But Bob, let's hear your thoughts on this Nairobi gubernatorial contest. It's shaping up to be quite a heated one now. Your thoughts on Mike Sonko's running mate?
Mike Sonko is coming in on a Jubilee ticket. Obviously, I don't want to comment on Jubilee politics. But again, city residents will decide. The only positive thing I can see in Sonko, and he had earlier on dismissed politicians. Sonko said he's got a team working on his policies and strategies. You know, already that tells you something about Sonko and his Jubilee team. So he actually ended up comparing us to not the very best. But again...
Who is us? And I thought you're independent.
No. You said us politicians.
Okay.
Yeah, you meant us politicians. But then again, I wish Sonko the best. If he wins, if people decide, so be it. The only admirable thing out of all this, which I can give him a plus, is at least to me, the choice of his running mate. If he wins, then we have credible brains to actually run the city.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Lee, let's hear your thoughts on this. Polycarp Igathe coming in as a running mate just this week. Peter Kenneth now saying that he's going to run as an independent candidate for the same position. How is this likely to shape up?
Now. Like you have said, I've too much stake on this matter because I'm a Nairobian. I'm running in Nairobi, Roysambu constituency. I'm an old boy in this game. And I can tell you this is something that is going to give us nightmare. Because my concern, number one, is how to send Kidero packing. He has run down the city, and this was the only time that we thought now we have redeemed the face until yesterday when Peter Kenneth got an entry on an independent candidate.
Right.
This is the worst nightmare that I had.
Why is that?
Now, because one, the choice of Sonko as running mate, Polycarp Igathe, that smart boy, a very good, astute leader in corporate world, complemented everything that Sonko lacked. Everything, and I can tell you. And for us, who were opposed to Sonko, I can tell you for free, are completely, solidly behind him now. And I'm an independent candidate like Peter Kenneth. But all is not lost. I would request the party leader, the Jubilee party leader, and our president, Uhuru Kenyatta, and his deputy, they must now work extra harder to make sure they either bring Peter Kenneth to understand that Nairobi is bigger than any of us. Because we have, by all means, to dislodge Kidero out of power.
Right. So that seems to be the one thing that, yes.
And that is where we are. Whether people now hate Sonko or they don't, Sonko has rebranded. He has given himself a clear roadmap.
That does not seem to be the feeling that Bob and Ndegwa here have. And Ndegwa, do you agree with that? That the choice of running mate now completely throws a spanner in the works?
Yes.
Let me first of all ask Lee whether rebranding means putting on a suit and a tie. Maybe an Italian suit. Is that what is called rebranding? Because the Italian suit does not up your game in the upstairs. Sonko is a guy who is caged in terms of intellect, in terms of capacity to become a stout leader as defined under chapter 6. Sonko cannot just put in an Italian suit and think that you've forgotten that he's a guy who boxes the wall. Sonko cannot put on an Italian suit and thinks that we have forgotten he's a guy who paints his head with some colors and some writings. And the bringing of Igathe does not save Sonko's candidature. Because Sonko represents, I'm dividing Nairobi into two, the eastern side and the western side. You see the way Uhuru, how he runs. Right. Uhuru represents the eastern side. Igathe represents the western side. And the question is, even bringing Igathe into whole question and saying that he now has a corporate face and that the corporate face of Igathe can then be merged with an Italian suit by Sonko, the question is, who will be running the city?
Right. All right.
Is it the Igathe or is it Sonko?
Just hold that thought because I want us to continue this conversation. But we also have Robert who is calling in from Nairobi. Robert, good morning. Many thanks for calling in. What is your question or comment?
Good morning, Ms. Hem.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Yes. I can hear you from the first topic. You are talking about the hunger.
Right.
And this hunger, surely for now, people in Nairobi is celebrating this hunger. But there are people crying about this hunger.
Why is that?
Like people and the people who are the retailers. Remember, in the business, there is something called the business chain of command, from the manufacturer to the retailer. And this effect came to affect the retailer. In that, the retailer is giving the product at the price that is subsidized, was given by the government. On the other side, when you go to the wholesaler, you find the wholesaler is putting a profit margin to a certain point whereby if a customer comes to the shop to buy a packet of Oga of 2 kg,
right, go ahead.
He will demand like a polythene bag to carry it. And that polythene bag costs 5 shillings. The profit margin that you have left with is 3 bob. So the retailers are not doing business in this business. Because at now we are taking this flour, a bundle of flour at 10.70. If you do a calculation, just a simple calculation, 10.70 divided by 12. It is even more than the government could have said, let the people go to the wholesaler or the manufacturer and get unga for free.
All right, Robert. We hear your concerns.
Let your panel discuss about this and give us the solution.
All right, thank you very much. That is Robert calling in from Nairobi, and he's taking us back to the unga debate, but he has very, very valid concerns for the retailer. This is not sustainable for them. They're being left with a profit margin of just 3 shillings. So we don't have a finance expert here in studio, but Ndego, maybe just to address that very shortly before we carry on with our conversation.
Yeah, maybe what I would say is that food issues should not be placed and should not be left to be regulated by the market forces. Food should be made affordable to all, and we also have to take into consideration the retailers and the wholesalers and the distance of the margin that they are doing. Maybe it's something that we need to rethink about. Maybe I may not have time to comment about a lot because that's a new emerging issue, yes, in the hunger debate.
Right. So we'll be seeking to get an expert to speak about that. But obviously, retailers not very happy with the subsidy of maize. But let's carry on with our conversation. And this is the Nairobi gubernatorial race. And Bob, just before I come to you, Ndegwa, let's talk about the Peter Kenneth factor, now also running as an independent candidate, and what shift it's likely to bring into this race.
Before I move to Peter Kenneth, my friend Lee here just said, just before the nominations and during the exercise, they really hated Sonko. Now, all of a sudden, because they picked a running mate, now they like him. You know, this kind of conmanship politics needs to come to an end. Now, what makes them like Sonko? Now, why? Why now?
Let's have Lee, Honorable Lee, answer that question, because that was a very quick, very swift change. Yeah. 1 minute you did not like Sonko and his policies, and the next minute you're supporting Sonko. Why is that?
Before he responds,
let me tell my brother.
No, just a minute. Just 1 minute.
Let's have you add your question.
Yes. What makes us think again that the good brains in Mr. Igade will be given a free hand to run the city?
Correct.
Actually, and these are my very sincere thoughts, Sonko on his own, he's got no capacity whatsoever to even identify Igade. So again, people who understand the importance of cities and especially Nairobi,
Imposed.
who are actually in a panic mode. They actually imposed IGAD.
All right.
Then again, who are these forces?
All right, I hope you're speaking from a place of evidence when you say that. But Lee, let's have your thoughts on this. Why this radical shift?
Surely, I need to ask my brothers to understand.
It is a very legit question.
Yeah, but they need to understand politics. Politics is the game of numbers. And as much as we would say, Sonko has no capacity to run the city. And that is why he has, IGAD has come in handy to compliment him. He has the numbers. That is a fact. He has the numbers.
So you're supporting him now because he has the numbers and not because of the policies and issues he's bringing out?
I thought then that Sonko could not. But I have been proven otherwise. And therefore, I'm saying Nairobi as is county is bigger than any of us. We must agree. So therefore, we have to look on a way that we can complement Sonko so that he's able to run.
But there's
the county.
many other candidates who've come out also seeking this race. It's not just Sonko against
Kenneth was
Kidero.
good. He's equally good even now. But he doesn't stand any chance now because it is not reversible. It is Sonko and Peter Kenneth. And if they come in together, they will bite from the same basket, which will be very unfortunate for us on the other divide. Because let's say for free, I'm here as an independent candidate. My brother is here as an independent, but he is associated to a certain,
He pledges allegiance to a certain party.
To a certain, which is NASA, of course. And obviously, I'm
You
in
pledge
Jubilee.
allegiance to Jubilee.
Whether I am
So are you in Jubilee or are you independent?
No. I have my allegiance to the
He's
president.
a Jubilee orphan.
So
I'm
you're-
a Jubilee orphan.
Right.
Like he's a
NASA
NASA orphan.
I'm not an
He's a
orphan.
Jubilee orphan.
No, he's an orphan.
Let's get back to this debate
Yeah,
because
my debate-
it's seemingly that there's a faction of Nairobi politicians making a decision for the people of Nairobi.
No. People of Nairobi made a decision when we didn't like it.
It's not people of Nairobi.
They made it on the ballot.
Michelle,
All right, let's hear from Degwa.
you know, how many registered voters do we have in Nairobi? We have over 1 million, 1.5 million.
Plus, yes.
How many guys stand up to vote for Sonko? 300 and something.
Yes.
How many of those were purely Jubilee, those that turned up? So the election is not yet done. The election will be on 8th of August. And God forbid that this city should be placed under the hands of Sonko. I remember in this is I've read, in 1984, when the then Jesse Jackson was being nominated to run as a president of the United States by the Democrats.
Right.
And he was addressing the Democrat conventions. He gave a speech and he said, I would rather have President Roosevelt on a wheelchair than have Reagan on a horse. And I would say, I would rather have somebody else on a wheelchair than Reagan on a horse.
Right.
It would be the disaster that this country would ever to do itself to place Sonko in City Hall. Reason being, he has not demonstrated previous capacity of being a person who can deliver. This guy is a guy who runs with hooliganism.
Point of order.
And this country cannot be placed under the question of hooliganism.
All right.
And
My
finish.
brother Nyaga, point of order.
Degwa.
Just point of Degwa, sorry.
Degwa.
Degwa, my brother.
Let me finish about...
No, it's a point of order. You have to respect that, Ndegwa. Listen to me, and listen to me carefully. You have forgotten that Sonko is the senator of Nairobi. You have just forgotten that.
Yes.
You have also forgotten that Sonko was elected
But
in
why-
Nairobi. Listen. In Nairobi, with the highest votes, unlike any other, including all the presidential
And I'll tell you
candidates
why.
that we paid loyalty
And I'll
to.
tell you why.
Right.
He has proven himself even better in this nomination exercise.
I'll tell you
Now,
why.
when you tell us that Nairobians have no faith, it is you who have no faith with the Sonko. Because all of us were on the same side the other day, but now we can tell you, good as bad as he wants to say Sonko is, we, and especially us from Mount Kenya, have settled for him.
All right, let's have
time.
Degwa finish up his
You know,
point.
this is not Mount Kenya.
No. We are
This
saying
is not Mount
this is
Kenya.
Nairobi. I have always said where I come from.
Let's give
I'm
Degwa an
saying where I come
opportunity.
from.
Nairobi,
All right.
Nairobi, and
Go ahead,
unfortunately,
Degwa.
and I think these Jubilee orphans need to understand that they are no longer Jubilee, they are independent.
No, we-
And they must start marching towards the mark of perfection. Us, independence. Lee, you must start having what is called a complete political metamorphosis.
Good.
And realize that you do not have a presidential candidate. And that is where you're trying to quote Jubilee. And that's why today you are meeting in Kasarani.
Yes.
Reason being, unless you mention the name of the president and the deputy president, you'll never get votes. Why?
No,
because
no,
let me
that
finish
is a
up.
lie.
Let me finish.
As much as
Let's
we
have
are-
Ndego finish.
Allow
his
me to
point.
finish. And that is why today you are meeting the president so that you can be seen that you are working together.
is the president who is meeting us.
The president,
The president sits in State House.
The president has
He's
not
coming
invited
from
you.
State House to meet us at
the
Kasarani.
Let's
president
have
has
Ndego
not
finish. That is the
invited
difference.
you. You have invited him. And he can
What-
do without the independent. Let me finish up, Lee.
Independent minds,
the
point of
unfortunate
order,
thing.
have their democratic right to elect. You see,
Any
that
presidential
day
candidate.
that
All
I will go
right,
in that
Honorable
ballot
Lee.
box.
Let's however let Ndego finish his point, and then I'll give
It's
you 1 minute to do
unfortunate
that.
for Lee to think that Nairobi is an extension of Mount Kenya region. Nairobi is a city for
I know.
all and sundry. And the Mount Kenya region cannot then direct how the city is going to be run. Every people must be given an opportunity to decide by the power of the vote. And stop this rhetorics that Sonko is the governor. The elections are on 8th of August. And that is what will be the determining factor. And the Nairobis must raise up. Now, can I tell you why Sonko is the governor, is a senator, and not Waitito? Reason being, people voted in their consciousness. They were able to separate Sonko and Waitito, and of course, Waitito and Sonko are birds of the same feather. And that is why people said, as for the question of the governor, we want sobriety. The question of the Senate, we can be able to live with that aspect of that kind of the life that he lives.
That is
if you
laughable.
if you read the judgment that was delivered by the Court of Appeal, by Justice Warsame, he compared during the Kidero's and Waitito's petition. He compared Waitito and Kidero. He said one guy is one who has come from the east, and he first described him in a very bad manner. And then that guy, then he described Kidero. He said the other guy is the one who has walked from the corporate world with a bit of elitism. The other one speaks with a lot of. Okay, I can just read the judgment, so you can be able to tell that Kenyans were looking for somebody who can be able to run the city. And that person has not come from Mike Sonko because he's now doing Italians.
All right, so we'll let Kenyans decide that. Gentlemen, we're out of time. So, Bob, let's have you give your final comments on this issue before we come to you, Lee.
I want to remind Lee Mushiri that this kind of mediocre reasoning,
And you define him as a Jubilee orphan.
whoever he is.
Like he is an
No,
assassin.
just a minute. For you to sit here and say that Mount Kenya has decided, actually just demonstrates the inner ineptness in you. And that just shows how mediocre this city is going to be. This city belongs to all Kenyans. All Kenyans, all investors. All right? And let's agree on that. Secondly, when we started this, you said our main core objective is to get Kidero out of power. That is your only objective, just to get Kidero out of power.
Exactly.
Now you've said
For
Kidero,
running down
Kidero has failed.
Nairobi, like he
No,
ran down.
just a minute.
Let's make
Do
it
you
very
know-
brief, Bob.
Do you understand the role of a senator? When Kidero was failing,
Very well.
where was the senator? What
Alright.
role was? Now, if the senator failed, what makes you think that he'll now do better than Kidero?
All right, Bob, so let's leave it at that. This is a very interesting debate that really has to be allocated more time.
Yeah,
But Lee,
yeah,
very
yeah.
briefly, your final comments.
Surely, I want to remind my brothers, he is not a Nairobian. In the first place, he's to not.
But he
speak
is a
for
Kenyan.
Nairobi.
This is the capital city of
capital
Kenya.
city. He doesn't know what bites in the city. I sleep, do business, do everything that I do in Nairobi. And I am a leader in my own right and capacity. Let me say this, for avoidance of doubt, why I will always go for Sonko or any other against Kidero is because Kidero has run down the city. I can tell you for free.
The job of the
And
senator
therefore
is
now,
to
I'm
oversee
left
the activities of the governor.
Exactly. I'm left with no choice than to have at least a difference from Kidero.
Has he lived up to
And-
his billing as the senator of Nairobi?
Yeah, he has. He took Kidero to task 2 times. We saw it in the Senate committee. We also know that they were in court. It is Sonko has done his job as a senator. And for that matter, whether I like him or not, As the look of the today is, we have either to go with Kidero, who got a direct ticket and bought himself the ticket from NASA, and or the choice of Sonko.
All right,
because we have them
the
again.
Kidero allegations, of
Now,
course, something that we cannot substantiate. We're out of time,
Okay.
Honorable, so unfortunately we will not be able to continue this conversation. But thank you so much for joining us on Weekend Express. We've been speaking, unfortunately, very, very briefly, 2 seconds.
Sonko is doing Italians. You see, even if you take a pig from its shed and wash it and take it into a sitting room, it is still going to dirtify that place.
All right, thank you very much, guys.
Will
We really are out of time.
Don't
Honorable
tell
Lee
him.
Mushiri is an independent candidate running for the Roysambu parliamentary seat. We've also been speaking to High Court Advocate Ndegwa Njiru and Bobo Kode, who is an independent candidate for the Butula constituency parliamentary seat. And that conversation brings us to a close here on Weekend Express. Many thanks for staying with us. My name is Michelle Ngele. I'll be seeing you again at the top of the hour. But for now, let's leave you with the live pictures from the Nyayo Stadium, where this year's edition